Thairapy Sessions. I'm your host, Auntie Hair Coach, and I help stylists discover your unique brand and use it to disrupt the beauty industry. Today's guest is a hairstylist, educator, and salon suite owner who specializes in genderless services on all hair textures. They've gained acclaim in competitions and trade conferences nationwide, including being nominated for a Behind the Chair Award in 2022. And we're super grateful that they've set aside time to share their journey with us. Olive has entered the chat. Welcome, Olive.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, so you already know your Instagram page is one of my favorites. You're such a vibe. And I believe I discovered you actually in 2020 during the COVID lockdowns because I'm not really much of a social media person, honestly. So I still am not really much of a social media person. I go on, I post, and I leave for the most part. But when I go on, I always make sure to go through every so often and binge your content because you're so great. I love you. But for people who aren't obsessed with your work, just tell us a little bit about who you are, where did you grow up, how did you grow up, and where are you located now?
Yeah, so I am in Fort Wayne, Indiana right now. I grew up about an hour north in a small town like Syracuse, Warsaw, Indiana. And about 5 years ago, I moved here to Fort Wayne just to have a bigger area, a bigger city to live in and create hair in and meet more people. And yeah, I am in a suite growing to a salon and I do haircuts. I like to do all haircuts. I don't like to really narrow it down too much, but I do offer a lot of gender affirming haircuts, um, curly cuts, short cuts. Yeah, I really like the artistry behind haircutting.
Yeah, and when we look at your Instagram page, we can definitely see that you're into the artistry of it. You are a wizard with
Thank you.
that razor, man. I
Oh,
love a
thank
good
you so
razor
much.
cut, and yours are like, they're a chef's kiss. They're amazing. Did you always want to be a hairstylist?
So I didn't. Before I got into hair, I was really into art. And I actually, for a long time, was like, oh, I'm going to go to college for art. And I accidentally fell into the hair industry, and it worked out really well because I really love it. But in high school, I was taking a lot of art classes, following that, and then my high school actually offered a vocational program for hair where your junior and senior year of high school, you did half days high school and half days cosmetology school. And the way that they marketed it is even if you didn't start it and like love it and want to do it forever, you could at least get your license and have a good paying non minimum wage job throughout college. And so I was like, okay, well, I like to get my hair done and be in the salon. So maybe this is something that I would like to do. And I went back and forth about if I wanted to go to college, but after I started, I really loved doing hair. So I fell into it on accident and have stayed with it since.
I love it. So when did you fall in love with the beauty industry?
So I really enjoyed it through school, and I really paid attention to all the classes, and I just had a large passion for it from the beginning in school and just meeting new people and getting to collaborate with them on what they want their hair to look like on the outside. And I don't think I fell in love with it to the extent that I am now until a few years in. When I first started doing hair, I was doing everything. I was in an Aveda salon at the time, and I was doing cuts and colors. I was even doing facials and nails. So I was doing really a little bit of everything. And I knew that haircutting was my favorite, but I didn't necessarily know that I could have a whole career off of haircutting. I was in a small town, so it was very much like, oh, hair color is where you make money. And so I think that that belief held me back for a little bit. And when I moved here to Fort Wayne, I followed some hairstylists who were really thriving doing only hair cutting. And so that's when I was like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do long term. How do I get there? And I think when I learned that that was an opportunity I could reach, that's when I really fell in love with haircutting, like full heartedly, if that makes sense.
No, totally, it does. And I definitely want to come back to haircutting as a primary form of income, um, because that's just I'm in awe of that. But I want to kind of stay on track here. So you you graduated high school and cosmetology school at the same time?
Correct. I graduated cosmetology school at the beginning of May and graduated high school at the end of May in
Oh wow.
2015. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was really
2015.
wild. I
Yeah.
started in my first salon right at 18. And that was a struggle in itself just because you're doing adults' hair and they're like, you look like a child.
And you
And so
totally
it,
have that face. Like you have a face that looks like you're
yeah,
gonna look like a baby forever. Yeah.
yes, yes. So that was the thing at the beginning. I was always like kind of dressing more professional, and I was even like even as far as combs and stuff. Like now, all of my combs are neon and fun colors. And when I first started, I was like, everything needs to be black. Everything needs to be so professional because I wanted people to take me seriously.
Sure. Sure. How did you decide on your first salon and where did you go?
Yeah, so I feel like my vocational program in school was really great, and we did job shadows at different salons every quarter. So I had job shadowed at a handful of different salons. And ever since I was young, I really liked being in the eco friendly side of hair. And so that's how I ended up falling onto Aveda. I went to one um, job shadow in Elkhart that was an Aveda salon and that I really enjoyed. And so that's when I started looking at other Aveda salons in the area. And I stayed with Aveda for the first 6 years of my hair career. So just really the last three has been not in that realm. But that's really how I fell onto it, is just staying with eco-friendly color, just a more natural side of things. But then it was also nice because right after school, you need continued education, and continued education can be expensive, especially for a new stylist. And Aveda offered a really great after school program teaching you their color and their haircuts and their product line. And I think that it gave me some guidance that I needed after school.
I love that. I love that. I'm such a proponent of finding a place with free continuing education, people that want to train you,
Yeah.
because you're right, it does get very expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
All right, so you graduate in 2015, and 5 years later, we have a whole pandemic with salons being shut down, and yet you still managed to carve out your own little business educator space. So, first of all, where were you when you found out that we had to shut down? And being such a relatively new stylist in the industry, what were you thinking? Like, kind of walk us through how that felt for a new stylist.
Yeah. So in 2019 is when I moved to Fort Wayne. So that's when
Okay.
I took the jump from smaller town to living in Fort Wayne. So I had
Okay.
really only worked here for about a year before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And I was still in a Veda salon, and I started in an Aveda salon here in Fort Wayne just because that's what I was familiar with. And it quickly became apparent through the pandemic that how I wanted to run my business didn't really align with the way that salon wanted to run theirs. And so it was really wild because I during the shutdown, I was at home obviously. And then right when we came back from shutdown, I was still at that salon for a few more weeks, and it was shortly after that that I quit and decided to go booth rent. And it was a lot of things. I think that masking and the pandemic and being in a more conservative state was part of it. And part of it was also just there was a lot of things going on. Just the Black Lives Matter movement was really prevalent at that time. And really, my views didn't align with a lot of people in the salon. And I needed to get out to provide a more welcoming environment. And so that's when I
Love that.
went to be self-employed, and I was in a booth rent salon after that. That aligned with my views a little better downtown, and that was a really great move for myself and my career. And I think that that's when I realized, okay, what I do in the salon before, I was trying to be professional and who other people wanted me to be. And I was like, no, those views need to be known. Like, I want to have clients that align with who I am and just like live my authentic life outside of the salon, but also in the salon. And so that was a really big pivot for me.
I love that. And you actually are helping me segue right on into my next set of questions because I wanted to talk about inclusivity. That's clearly when anyone who goes to your page can, and that's very apparent. So I love that for you because any potential clients who don't align with those values are going to be turned off by that, which is what we want, right? And
Yeah.
you talked a little bit about wanting to be professional, right? And I remember that being pushed so hard early in my career as well. But professional means different things to different people, and being able to protect your mental health behind the chair absolutely is professional, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I historically the beauty industry does not tend to go out of its way to be inclusive as it pertains to, well, basically anything outside of traditional societal beauty norms. And I came of age in the 80s where gender bending was the norm, but my memories of going to the salon as a child is a very linear experience. Um, there's a stylist, Kia Neal, who always says that the two most segregated places on earth are churches and beauty salons, and she's working really hard to
Yes.
change that. You specify that, or you specialize in genderless services on all hair textures, and that's a very specific niche. Why did you make that business decision?
So I made that business decision because I am queer and non binary myself in Indiana. So that's a more conservative
Good
Midwest
times.
state. Yes. And just me being my authentic self attracted a lot of other queer clients to my chair. And it was at that salon that I was at right before the pandemic that I was having a lot of queer clients start coming to me. And I was struggling with how to charge them just because I would have someone come in for a clipper cut and then to charge them a women's haircut price versus a men's haircut price when the person before them was a man and just walked out at a different price was so wild to me. And it's also weird, like charging someone a men's price when they're not a man. Like, it's just such a weird concept. And so when I switched to being booth rent, I knew that I wanted to have a genderless service menu. So I just do haircuts. It's not a women's haircut or a men's haircut. It's just a service.
A
It's just a
haircut.
haircut. Yeah.
Had you seen that somewhere before?
So I followed a few other people that were going that route. And I know that Destroy the Hairdresser was one of the accounts that I followed that really preached about the Dress Code Project and Strands for Trans, which are both really great organizations that are pushing the industry to get further away from gender, which has been really cool. And so that's something that I immediately implemented when I was able to be booth rent and have my own business structure. And yeah, that's been a real game changer. And I feel like so many stylists are switching to that. And when you think about color, there's not like a men's color and a women's color. So it's weird that it was even put that way for haircuts for so long.
Exactly. And I
Yeah,
thought it was illegal in Indiana and in a lot of places to
it
charge
is
based on
different. Yeah,
gender.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting how, yeah, how things work and how they get away with certain things.
Hmm.
But even like as products, like when I was with Aveda, there was like a men's line and a women's line. And I really liked this one like paste texturizer in the
Hmm.
men's line. And so I would often reach for it for Pixies. But then it's like, oh, they're taking home this product that has like big men's written across it. But it's like
Yes,
product is product. It works good for hair. Like,
absolutely.
what makes it a men's product, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, pixies are one of my favorites. I love a razor cut pixie, and I
Yeah.
always reach for like a texture paste for
Yeah.
styling. And it's almost always a product, and so a quote unquote men's product, right? And so I'll
Hmm.
point it out to my guest, and I'll say, your hair doesn't know the difference. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Usually, it's the smell, right? Like it's
Yeah.
fruity or flowery versus something, a little more quote unquote masculine for
Yeah.
lack of a better way to describe it. But your hair doesn't know. It's not like there's special chemicals in there that are only for men.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember one of the things that I really remember about you or about your page that made me stop and just go, now this is interesting. And it may have been when you were doing the project with Destroy the Hairdresser. But you were the first stylist that I followed that spoke so openly on your IG page and so vulnerably about your gender specifically. Um, but you didn't always do that. Earlier in, you didn't always do that. Do you remember what made you feel that it was important to share it? Um, Not only to share your journey, but like to create that safe space for your guests in your salon.
Yeah, so it definitely started with me just being queer and primarily dating women. And I remember at the beginning of my career having clients coming in and being like, oh, like, what's your boyfriend's name? Do you have a boyfriend? And it was very much that. And so I started being so open about just me being queer and who I was dating online. That way people knew before they even came to me. So it was kind of protecting myself in a way, is how I started everything. But what I learned when I started posting about myself and my journey is that other people felt more comfortable with me and more comfortable coming to me if they were queer. And so queerness and gender, it goes with each other and doesn't go in each other. It's just kind of all intertwined. And I knew that I didn't fit in, but wasn't really sure how or the right words for that or anything. And so it was at my last salon right before I switched over to my suite here that I was really going over pronouns and what felt authentic to me. And I was using she, they pronouns for a while, then they, she pronouns for a while. And what I found was that I felt most authentic and most myself with they, them pronouns. And I was really keeping the she in there just to make it easier for other people, which I have learned now that I don't want to live my life. Life is so short, and I don't want to live my life for other people. And so that's when I was like, okay, this is something that I want to allow other people in on, especially because behind the chair, people let you in on such vulnerable parts of their life and their relationships and their journeys, divorces, babies, just everything in their life. And I really wanted to be able to share my authentic life with those clients as well. And so, yeah, I posted that online and came out with my pronouns and that I was non binary. And people were so supportive and so kind. And it's been really cool just to be in Fort Wayne. And I never thought that I would be able to live so openly and queer in such a conservative state. And it's been so cool because I feel like I really have like created a community that and surrounded myself with such kind people, which is really cool. I know that I'm in a conservative state, but I always forget because I'm surrounded by the kindest people.
Yes. I currently live in Georgia, but I moved to Georgia 2 years ago from Indiana. I was in Indiana
Oh
during
my
the lockdowns.
gosh,
I was
that's
in
amazing.
Indianapolis. Yeah, I
Okay,
was in
cool.
Indianapolis. And yeah, Indianapolis was wild during the
Yes.
lockdown. I'm
Yeah,
just like, what planet am I on? And I
it's
mean,
wild.
it is what it is. Okay, so during the lockdowns, let's just kind of stay in that vein for a while. You were really outspoken about Breonna Taylor and your support for the Black Lives Matter movement. Was there a specific moment, because you're born and raised in Indiana, small town Indiana, that like I kind of got a little giggle when you called Fort Wayne a big city because
I
even
know.
Fort Wayne is small. Um, was there a specific moment where you realized, where you understood the inequities in society? Um, so that's the first part of the question. And then how have you been able to draw parallels within the beauty industry?
Yeah.
Is this
So I think that, um, so I'm 26. I started doing hair at a young age, so I'm still fairly young, and I've had a lot of growth. I think before 2020, I was very blind to the inequality just throughout everywhere. And I think 2020 really opened my eyes to what was happening and what's been happening for years and years. I just didn't see it from my perspective and my privileged perspective. So Breonna Taylor was very close to us. It was in Kentucky, so about 4 hours away. And it was wild. Like, I think that things like that have been happening for so long, and having that been like so close to home is so wild. And the people who just saw that and cared more about cops and other, I'm like, but the people, like, but these are people, you know what I mean? So I think that opened my eyes a lot. I was very open that I was going to Black Lives Matter protests, and I know that queerness and blackness are very different, but the intersectionality is important, and standing up for people who are othered is very important. And I knew what it felt like to be othered, and I really wanted to use my voice to stand up for what I thought was right. Um, especially in Indiana, and it's wild because I was like, oh, I'm going to lose business. I didn't care. I wanted to stand up for what I knew was right. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to lose business. But what I found is that honestly, people who weren't sticking up for what was right were losing business, because if you're going to a stylist and they are actively against believing that everyone is equal, how are you supposed to feel welcomed there? So I actually did have a few clients who came to me and were like, yeah, I'm coming to you because I know that you believe in equality and are trying to, your beliefs align with mine. You know what I mean? So that's something that's been really wild. But along with the beauty industry, I again noticed in 2020, I went to a very small town, and we were never taught how to cut curly hair, textured hair, um, anything like that. And that became apparent in 2020 as well. I was like, okay, I'm fighting for equality, but at the same time, I can only service half the people. You know what I mean? And so I even made a post back then. I was like, I am making a promise that this year I'm going to really focus on textured education and learning from people. And I actually took a class from Kia, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
But so that year I really focused on curly and cutting education in general. And I think that's been missing from a lot of schools. I know some schools teach it, but I think a lot of schools are missing that in their curriculum. And it was actually so fun. I love cutting curly hair. It's now like one of my favorites to do. And so transformative, honestly, to see people living and being able to wear their hair natural, people who have straightened their hair their whole life and are able to not wash and go, but like more of a wash and go than doing a whole straighten.
Mhm.
Curly haircuts are some of my favorites now, but that was a big shift that I made in 2020 as well. And now it's funny because every year since then, I send an email to my cosmetology school and I'm like, listen, you always ask how to better prepare these students for the real world, and you need to add a cutting curriculum. You need to add a curly cutting curriculum to what you're teaching these kids. And every year they ignore me. But I'm going to keep doing it until they listen,
Yeah.
because I really feel like that would make a big impact. And it starts at the schools and how these students come out and what they're prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, do you ever go into the schools and teach? Like, remember how they
I
used to
do.
have like comes in? Okay. Yeah. You go in and
I
do
do.
good.
Yes, I am
Good.
going to reach out and try to do a curly cutting class this year. Last year I went in and did a shag cutting class, and they do that frequently where they have other people come in and teach extensions or nails or things that they don't feel confident in, which I know it's
Hmm.
also the two teachers that definitely do not feel confident in curly hair cutting.
Yeah. It's Indiana, so
Yeah.
I'm not shocked by that.
Yeah.
Do you so I definitely did lose some business post lockdowns because prior to 2020, clearly I've been Black my entire life.
Yes.
And so I'm aware of the experience of being Black. Um, but oftentimes I just always, prior to 2020, and I've been doing hair for 27 years. 2020 was the moment for me that made me understand that my chair is not like Walmart or Target or something, right? Like, I'm not obligated to serve you just because you want service. And
Yes.
I don't know why for some reason I didn't understand that prior to 2020, but 2020 definitely was the line in the sand that was like, okay, look, I don't care that we're in Indiana and like this is
Yeah.
normal. Um, Here's what we're not going to do today. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate your vocalness on social media and seeing other people because it feels sometimes like the industry as a whole still has a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So when you see people, individuals that get it, just like I'm sure not just like with queerness, but it's nice to be able to look out and see that there's an ally there.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that also just like inclusivity is always, you're ever learning. I'm always going to be
Mhm.
learning how to be more inclusive and more of a safer space for all humans, and I think that that's something that everyone just needs to grasp, is that it's not like, oh, you're here, you either do get it or you don't get it. It's, you should always be learning and you should
Mhm.
always be trying to be a better person than you were yesterday, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, everything in life is that way. If
Yeah.
right, you should be constantly learning. Um, and I remember, again, I'm much older than you are. You're younger than both of my children. Um, and so my children have been the ones for me with gender and sexuality that have really gotten me together because I didn't know. It was honestly not something that ever even I thought about, which is a
Yeah.
privilege, right? To not have to think about that. And so, yeah, my children have gotten me together, and I'm grateful that I am still open enough to receive that information and understand that I still have a lot to learn too. I get it. Um, this is not inclusivity, but maybe also still in the vein of like activism,
Hmm.
maybe. You made a post one time about composting hair, and
Yeah.
I was just really intrigued by that. Can you share more about the why and the how?
Yeah. So I've always really cared about the environment. And like I said from the beginning, that's why I started with Aveda, is because they market themselves as natural and better for the environment and better for caring for the earth. And that's something that I've always really been into. My dad always used to call me like a hippy dippy. Just like, I very much care about the earth
Yeah.
and all of the beings on it. So I found out that hair is compostable, and since I only do hair cutting and don't offer color, that's really the only waste that I'm creating. And so being able to compost it, it just takes the hair and the cuttings and puts it in this compost full of other food scraps and cardboard and things, and they all break down into nutrient rich soil that can be used back into the community, which is really cool. So there's lots of programs that do this. I know that like some of the bigger hair recyclable programs. Like, I know that Salon Cycle, I think, is one of them. But they do where you can ship it and then they take care of it. But I actually compost with a local company here in Fort Wayne called Dirt Wayne, and they compost with local restaurants. And I think they do 3 salons here in Fort Wayne. And cardboard, paper, they do home scraps, and they all decompose to be nutrient rich soil that then they can use for community gardens, and people actually buy the soil to use for plants. And yeah, it's a really cool circular kind of economy that's been really cool for me. So it's really cool. They come and pick it up once a week, and I don't really have to do the most of that. I just throw all my hair cutting scraps into compost bags and send it with them.
That's awesome. Do they charge you for that?
It is a monthly service fee. They do like they can do it yearly or monthly, and then same with like Salon Cycle. That's like a monthly recycle type program. What's nice about Dirt Wayne though is that it is employing like people here in Fort Wayne. And I'm actually close with the person who comes and picks up my compost every week. I see him every week, and we follow each other on Instagram, and so I'll message him and be like, "Hey, I'm taking the week off. Don't come to my space."
That's awesome.
And so it's nice in that realm, and it's definitely affordable. Like, I want to say I pay like $15 a month, like pretty cheap.
Yeah, and totally worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm really passionate about and really like, and just trying to get away from kind of all of the bad stuff, all of the waste, you know? Even like drink wise in the salon, I try to carry cans. Like, I carry canned water versus bottled water because the cans are infinitely recyclable. The aluminum is infinitely recyclable, where plastic is only recycled so many times.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Does it matter if the hair is colored or not? Because I just bought my first home. I'm still, there's like, you can't see off camera, there's boxes still everywhere. But one of the things I'm most excited about is I finally have a compost bin in my backyard.
Oh my gosh,
next spring, I've wanted a compost bin for years. So next spring, I'll finally. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
One thing about Georgia, there is going to be a thunderstorm every single day. I don't know what it is about it. Yeah, but I'm super excited to start my garden next year. Does it matter if the hair is colored? Because I'm going to start bringing my hair home and tossing it in the compost bin.
Yeah, you definitely should. It doesn't. You can do colored hair, other hair. You can even do extension hair. You just have to cut it off the like nylon string. It's very interesting. But yeah, it can be all hair. If you have like hair tinsel, you can't do the hair tinsel, but all hair is even colored and everything, which is really cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I have a segment that I call Story Time with Auntie Hair Coach. I have 3 prompts. I'll give you all 3. You can choose one, or if you want to tell a story about all 3, you absolutely can. But pick one and just tell us the story. Cool? All right, so here are the prompts. The first one is tell us a time that you really messed up someone's hair. The second is the best beauty industry advice you've ever received. And the third is the worst beauty industry advice you've ever received.
Oh, those are all such good ones. So I'll go a little bit on all of them. So a time that I really messed up someone's hair, I think that a lot of times when you mess up someone's hair, it's like a miscommunication. It's like I didn't ask them enough questions. I just like kind of assumed that sort of thing. But I messed up my dad's hair once, and that was probably the worst of them all because it definitely wasn't a miscommunication. It was just I fucked it up.
It happens.
But it was a clipper haircut, and he did like a 5 on the top and like a 3 to a 1 on the sides. And I definitely put like the 2 guard on and just like went right down the top, which is like so much shorter than a 5. So I did the whole
Absolutely.
haircut, blended it. Like I like obviously had to do a 2 on top and take down the sides. And it was my dad, so we weren't in a salon. Like we just did it in the basement of his house really fast.
Yeah.
And so we had not a mirror. So I sat there and did the whole haircut. And then at the end of the haircut, I was like, so something not ideal happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which at the time it's now funny, but I definitely cried. I was like, oh my gosh, I just really messed up his hair, which it's fine. Like, especially clipper cuts, they grow back so fast, but I felt
I
so
mean, and 5
bad.
is still not that long. So
Yeah,
what, it takes 2
yeah,
weeks and he's like back to normal.
exactly. Exactly. But that I definitely messed that one up, and I think part of it was that I was at home. I like wasn't paying as much of attention as I do in the salon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um the best advice I've gotten in the hair industry. So when I wanted to switch from doing everything to primarily focusing on cutting, I went to this haircut specialist that was actually in India at the time, and to get my haircut and just to ask them what it took to get to where they were then. And so I was just kind of talking about what I did, and I was like, I really want to do what you do. I want to offer cool haircuts all day, every day. Like, I really want to do what you do, and I want to know, like, how you got there. And they were like, oh my gosh, yeah, you should do it. You just have to do it. And that was their advice, is that you just have to do it. And I think that that's such good advice in anything you want. If you want something, you have all these things telling you why you shouldn't do it, and you just have to do it anyways. And I think that that's been really, really, that's exactly what I needed to hear at the time. And I try to listen to that voice more later on in my career. Like when I wanted to open the salon, I'm like, there's so many things telling me that why I shouldn't, but if this is what I want, I just have to do it.
That
So
is
that's
great.
been definitely the best advice I've gotten.
That's great advice. Yeah. I love it. Okay. You have been very open, or maybe I saw this on your website, which would still qualify as being very open, about being neurodivergent. Talk about that and your career.
Yeah, so I didn't know that I was for a very long time. And I've always had anxiety, and I've been on anxiety medication for a long time. And when I first moved here to Fort Wayne, I went to a psychologist who, since I was a new patient, they had me go through all the new patient forms, everything like that. And they were like, oh, like, you definitely have ADHD. And I was like, what do you mean I have ADHD? And they like went into the questions, and they're like, you said you forgot your keys a lot and you lose things a lot and like this and that. And I was like, oh, interesting. And
Yeah.
so I kind of did a deep dive into ADHD and neurodiversity, and it's something that definitely aligns with how I felt a lot of my life. I think I've always get distracted very easily, and it's definitely been a journey. In hair, it's been interesting to see my growth along with that, because I remember in hair school when I first started taking on clients, my teachers were like, yeah, like you're good at hair, but you need to talk while you're doing hair. Like, why can't you like talk to your guest? And I think that I was really struggling with multitasking of both doing the hair and talking to people, which now, I mean, years later, I've definitely got that taken care of. But um I think that now it works really well in my favor, because I do want to be so inclusive behind the chair, and just sharing my authentic self with other people. People feel safe in here, even if it's not like about them being queer or anything like that. Like I had a guest come in here a few months ago, and they just like kind of started to tear up, and they were like, I feel bad asking, but can I just have a big hug? And I'm like, yes, like you can. And just having people be so vulnerable and able to be themselves where they're at in that moment is so special. And after they left, I was like, it's so nice how well, like, that shows how welcoming of an environment I've created, that they felt safe to just take a second and cry and ask for a hug after the day that they've had. And I think that that's really important and special. And it means a lot to me that people trust me.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I remember being told in beauty school that sometimes we may be the only person that physically touches them that day. And that just blew my mind. And so
Yeah.
I try to approach every person as if I'm the only person that's going to physically touch them that day, and what I want, how I want that to feel for them.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what
so
I mean?
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So we're winding down, but I do have a couple more questions. Um, what is the most important part of your story?
I think the most important part of my story has really just been me becoming more of me every day. I think when you grow up anywhere, people tell you who you should be. And when you're going through school, they're telling you who you should be behind the chair. And I think just me listening to myself and not what other people are saying I should be, who I actually am, has been the best part of my story. And the more I lean into myself and trusting myself and how I feel, the better things get every day. And so that's definitely, I think, the biggest part. I think that I had a big shift when I was openly gay behind the chair. That was a big thing for me. I was very nervous about that for a long time. And then after that, being openly non binary behind the chair was another big shift for me. And yeah, I think just being myself wholeheartedly, even if the world is telling you to do the opposite.
Absolutely. Nobody can do you like you.
Yes, yes.
All right. So tell us what's next for Olive and how can we follow your movement?
Yes, so I am currently opening a full salon. So I'm growing from my salon suite with just myself to
Yay.
a full salon with a staff and other stylists
Congratulations.
and other creatives.
So
And
awesome.
I'm so excited. So,
Yes.
so excited. It is the Space Salon on Instagram. And I'm really trying to create a space for clients, but also for stylists. I think that I ended up in a suite just because that's where I felt the safest to be my authentic self. And I want to create that space on a bigger level for other stylists to have a space that I didn't necessarily have, which I'm
Yes.
really excited about. I found a really great location and I'm really looking forward to growing and hosting educators and just having a little hub here in Fort Wayne.
I love that. I love that. How can we find you? Where should we go to? You said the space on Instagram?
So on Instagram, it's the Space Salon
Okay.
for the salon, and then my Instagram is Olive the Hairapist. Both of those, I have a website. The salon will have a website coming up this month, and the salon is opening September 8th.
Awesome. Congratulations. Oh, you're getting out
Thank
to
you
the
so much.
wire. You got like,
I know. I'm headed there after
woo.
this.
The next time I'm in Indiana, I'll make it a point to swing by and check it out, though. I'm so
I would
excited
love
for
that.
you.
I would love that.
So excited for you. Olive, you are inspirational, you're aspirational, and I'm really grateful for this chunk of your time that you've given me today. Thanks for sharing with my community.
Oh, thank you so much. Seriously, it's been so nice. I appreciate you. You've been the
Awesome.
sweetest. Seriously.
Thank you. Ta ta for now.